Before becoming a two-time heavyweight champion and the face of his name-brand grill, George Foreman was a Houston street boy trying to survive. He conquered, not simply survived. Foreman fashioned one of sport's greatest lives, with fists, religion, and tenacity. Behind the smiles and accomplishments was a guy who fought demons few saw. He left a shocking legacy when he died at 76. A big, lovingly planned fortune and personal messages that made his children cry. It's more than a boxing narrative. This is the story of a man who started from nothing, lost it all, rebuilt it, and left a legacy beyond money. The secret story of George Foreman's final magnificent gift. George Foreman's career began without fame or titles. Houston's Fifth Ward's harsh streets started it. George, the fifth of 7 children, was born on January 10, 1949, in a struggling family. His biological father, Leroy Moorhead, was absent. Nancy Foreman, George's mother, married J.D. Foreman tried to support the family on janitor pay. George was angry, poor, bullied, and troubled as a child. Walking the streets, he battled everybody who looked at him badly. School didn't matter. Often food was expensive. Shoes didn't always fit. In his universe, surviving wasn't fun. Survival was at stake. George began stealing, fighting, and fantasizing about escape by the time he was a teenager. One night, while fleeing the police, he understood he had to reform or die, or go to prison. He joined the Job Corps at 16 out of desperation, a federal program that teaches problematic youngsters trades and builds careers. Oregon was where George found his calling. After being taught boxing by Doc Broadus, Foreman demonstrated terrifying strength. He wasn't polished, but unusually strong. Broadus taught him discipline, purpose, and a new dream, the Olympics, as well as fighting. George embraced it as life-saving. He trained hard, changing his life day by day. He fought at the 1968 Mexico City Olympics with the hopes of every neglected kid back home. Foreman dominated the tournament and won the gold medal. The world saw a future champion waving a small American flag on the podium. George noticed another thing, proof that a trash youngster could become a man the world respected. He didn't realize that staying on top would be harder than getting there. After winning the Olympics, George Foreman turned pro. He demolished, not just won. He went undefeated from 1969 until 1973, defeating opponents with unprecedented force. Every blow was a statement. Foreman was no ordinary fighter. His power was natural. The money poured in. Promoters adored him. His fans loved him. Networks adored him. In 1973, Foreman fought Joe Frazier for the world heavyweight title, his first big paycheck. Frazier, unbeaten and fierce, was anticipated to defend his title. Instead, Foreman knocked him down 6 times into 2 tough rounds to earn one of the most dominant titles ever. Foreman went from thug to wealthy overnight. Deals for endorsement followed. The new normal included fancy outfits, flashy automobiles, and extravagant mansions. He had arrived, and everyone knew it. But stardom didn't sit well with Foreman. He wasn't Ali with a fast tongue and charisma. George was quieter, angrier, and restrained. Isolation increased with money. He realized that many people cared more about his wallet than his well-being and felt lonelier as he got richer. Still, Foreman fought. He thrashed Ken Norton and Jose Roman to retain his title. The 1974 jungle bout against Muhammad Ali would define him for better or worse. Foreman was the unbeatable juggernaut entering the fight. Ali, with his cunning and indomitable determination, had other ideas. Ali used the now famous rope-a-dope method to let Foreman punch himself out and knock him out in the 8th round. Foreman lost his invincibility, and the title, which destroyed him. George stopped being invincible. He was weak. That vulnerability led to a separate conflict that nearly cost him everything. After losing to Ali, George Foreman's life and career collapsed. His millions didn't purchase peace. The houses, vehicles, and diamonds couldn't replace that one Zaire night. He kept fighting, winning, and losing. But his passion was gone. Worse, his fury, which previously drove him, consumed him. Friends noted he became erratic, lashing out, withdrawn, and very unhappy, and that no amount of money could solve. After a devastating Puerto Rico loss to Jimmy Young in 1977, things changed. Foreman went to his dressing room and fell, exhausted and drained. He later recounted a near-death experience, not a fainting condition. George said he saw God, love, and forgiveness after dying and plunging into darkness. He asked for a second chance then. He pledged to follow faith, not fame, if he survived. Foreman altered permanently after waking up. Without hesitation, he quit boxing. No goodbye tour, no last paycheck, just stillness. George Foreman disappeared for a decade. He started Houston's Church of the Lord Jesus Christ after being ordained. His humble lifestyle and preaching to empty congregations made him seem poor compared to his prior wealth. He gave to the community, fed the destitute, and housed the homeless for years to atone for his youth mistakes. However, lousy investments, financial management, and the cost of running his ministries eroded his fortune. Former world richest fighter George Foreman was broke by the mid-1980s. He preached and smiled without complaining or suing, but his family needed more. Children were growing, bills were rising, unthinkable thoughts began to appear. After nearly 40 years, George Foreman chose to fight again, for survival, not fame or revenge. Most boxing fans laughed when George Foreman returned in 1987. Nearly 40, overweight, and without fighting in over a decade. Reporters sneered, crowds laughed, and promoters doubted anyone would watch him fight. But Foreman didn't mind the noise. He wanted stability for his family, not headlines. Foreman returned to the ring at roughly 270 pounds, far from the shredded behemoth who previously ruled the heavyweight division. However, he embraced the image of the friendly fat man with a savage hit. He knew his physical strength was lacking, but he had experience, heart, and an unbreakable will, unlike many of his younger opponents. George won battle after battle. Through journeymen and peripheral candidates, he slowly rose in the rankings. He won people over with his attitude, not just his accomplishments. The 1970s ominous figure was gone. George Foreman joked, smirked, and mocked his weight in interviews. He was a media darling for combining harshness and tenderness. At 45, Foreman challenged Michael Moorer for the heavyweight title in 1994. Moorer was unbeaten, 19 years younger, and favored. In the first 9 rounds, Foreman was outboxed, yet remained calm. In round 10, he delivered a right hand that altered everything. Moorer fell. The referee ruled him out. Against all odds, George Foreman became boxing's oldest heavyweight champion. That victory was more than personal. Every underdog who had been told they were too old, broken, or far gone, won. Foreman knelt in silent prayer, his scarred hands still coated in history. Financial security, not bragging rights, came with the belt. George was still building. He would make his biggest lucrative move outside the ring. George Foreman achieved a second prime after reclaiming the heavyweight title, a rare feat. Even he understood boxing was short-lived. When opportunity knocked unexpectedly, George answered the door. In the mid-1990s, Foreman was asked to endorse a fat-reducing electric barbecue. It seemed absurd that a heavyweight champion would endorse a kitchen gadget, but Foreman noticed something unique. He knew Americans enjoyed good cuisine and being healthy. If he, a huge, lovable former champ, could sell grilling thin meals, it might work. Not immediately successful. The early infomercials were awkward, but George's charisma and relatability helped. No chef impersonation. He declared he loved burgers, and this grill made them healthier. His boisterous laugh, broad smile, and honesty made the George Foreman grill famous. Sales skyrocketed. Worldwide sales exceeded 100 million grills by the early 2000s. The bargain Foreman made was great. He negotiated a profit share instead of a flat endorsement price. Foreman made an estimated $138 million when Sultan Inkenin, the barbecue maker, bought out his rights in 1999, more than his boxing earnings. He saved money and transformed his family's future using the grill. George was smarter than when his first wealth slid through his grasp. His investment was real estate. He created trusts, diversified his holdings. George Foreman Grill sparked an empire that transcended boxing, celebrity, and American entrepreneurship. He became wealthy and one of the few athletes to overcome the odds financially. Despite his wealth, George never forgot his roots or his cause. Behind his celebrity, money, and happy public image, George Foreman's heart raced for his family. He had 12 children, 5 males named George, and 7 daughters. George valued family above all else. While young and destitute, he pledged that if he made it big, his children would never have to experience his existence. No more hunger, dread, or worrying about the lights. Foreman kept his promise and built a family safety net with his riches. He purchased their homes, paid for their college tuition, and helped them start businesses and jobs. But it was about potential, not just money. He claimed in an interview that money can't raise kids. You must. He was. George was deeply interested in their lives despite his busy schedule. He attended school plays, sports, and family dinners whenever possible. He was a presence and a giver. He also sealed his estate. To guarantee his riches was divided fairly after his death, Foreman established many trusts. No bickering, legal fights, or headlines. Just a strong family, like he always desired. George wrote each of his children letters with wisdom, affection, and memories. He wrote on faith, patience, kindness, and what it meant to be a Foreman with dignity and humility, not money. George Foreman left his family with a foundation greater than any bank account, not simply a financial one. As we'll discover, his children cried more over the father who gave them everything than the millions he left behind. After years, George Foreman's invincible physique began to wear down. His physique was damaged by decades of boxing, conflicts with Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, Ron Lyle, and others that no amount of money could cure. He had many surgeries, hip replacements, knee replacements, and old injury repairs. Chronic back pain plagued daily life. His once powerful hands became tight and bloated with arthritis. He laughed about it in interviews, but close pals understood it was serious. Physical pain wasn't his only slowdown. Foreman fought his heart physically and spiritually. Rumors emerged in the early 2000s and 2010s that he had cardiac problems after years of physical hardship and weight swings during his career. Though he kept most information hidden, friends believe Foreman was quietly preparing for the next part of his life, where fighting wasn't an option. Public appearances decreased, no more lengthy media tours and meet and greets. When he attended boxing or charity events, he moved slowly, relied on relatives, and needed medical staff. George never complained. Instead, he grew in faith, family, and pleasure. His days were spent fishing, tending to his ranch, attending Sunday cookouts, and remembering his heavyweight title days. Many didn't realize that beneath his serene public persona, George worked hard to prepare for his death. As an estate lawyer, financial planner, and trust organizer, he spent hours ensuring his heir would not be confused, litigated, or bitter. He realized time was short. George Foreman planned to finish everything, just like in the ring. The news thundered in early 2025. Critically ill George Foreman was hospitalized. Brief reports said the famous champion was under close medical monitoring after a catastrophic health problem. Fans took to social media to pray and pay tribute. Boxing legends, celebrities, and millions of average people waited for developments that never came. Except for one statement, Foreman's family was silent. Please pray and give us privacy during this terrible time. Days later, George Foreman died quietly at his Texas ranch on March 9, 2025, surrounded by family. His age was 76. His death shook the world. News outlets paid tribute. Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, and Deontay Wilder posted passionate tributes. Actors, musicians, and politicians honored the behemoth, who had become more than a combatant. While the public mourned a legend, the Foreman family home saw a more intimate scene. Not only did George's children, grandkids, and closest friends weep, but they also celebrated his life as a parent, grandpa, and friend. At the modest private funeral, there were no fireworks or a big show. George intended that. He wanted a simple goodbye with laughing, storytelling, religion, and family. His oldest son read parts from George's letters to each of his children at the ceremony, bringing the family to tears. Letters teaching life lessons, not how to squander his riches. He discussed thankfulness, humility, honesty, faith, and love. In life, George Foreman hit harder than anyone. He hit harder in death, but straight to the heart. The Foreman family was ready for inheritances, trusts, and allocations when attorneys read the will. The scope of George Foreman's legacy surprised them. From boxing purses, George Foreman grill royalties, smart real estate investments in Texas and California, endorsement deals, book royalties, and a meticulously maintained licensing empire, Foreman's estate was estimated to be worth over $300 million. The personal touches George left for each of his children were more impressive than the numbers. Fathers gave their children personal letters and financial inheritances. He wrote about the lessons he wanted students to remember. He didn't boast about his titles or wealth in his letters. Character, dignity, family, and understanding that life's true wealth was the love you leave behind were his topics. George III cried after reading his father's letter's last words. "Have my name, make it meaningful." Georgetta cried while sharing her father's advice. Avoid fame's struggle, defend kindness. Even attorneys, used to frigid court hearings, reportedly cried. George Foreman left his family tremendous cash, but the emotional wealth, love, guidance, and pride made them cry. His family was stronger than gold, and he had built a fortune,